Good day, everyone. Today's recorded discussion focuses on learning outcomes, their meaning, principal sources, and defining characteristics. By the end of this session, you will be able to explain what learning outcomes are, list their main sources, justify why they must reflect industry needs, identify the characteristic of good learning outcomes, and evaluate and improve sample learning outcomes. What are learning outcomes? But first, for answering that question, let us be remembered, uh, be reviewed on this topic, which we have discussed last time about outcome based education. In that, you were able to understand what institutional outcomes are, which are considered the graduate attributes, the program outcomes, the course outcome, until the very specific learning outcome. This is important for us to understand since most cases, after crafting the curriculum, the always um, goal of an educator is to implement it successfully. If not successfully, at least 90% of the time. So that's why when we talk about a learning outcome, it is actually just the very specific of the curriculum itself. These are the ones that are assessed or what the learners are expected to know, understand, and be able to do at the end of any learning experience. They are concrete targets of instruction and assessment. That the competencies will be assessed during and after teaching. In other words, learning outcome articulate expected student performance in clear, observable, and accessible terms. So here are the different sources of learning outcome. First, the institution vision and mission, which aligns outcomes with the school purpose and values. This may not be very observable, but for us, in the context of Holy Cross of Davao College, we actually craft our learning outcome not just on what is stipulated in the program outcome. We also do it in a Holy Crossan um, institutional outcomes, such as, for example, the spirit of stewardship that may not be visible in our black and white learning outcome. But when we make our learning outcome, it should always be considered. Another example in the context of basic education, the institution there is the Department of Education. In the Matatag curriculum, it is always best that the practice aligns with the framework that the curriculum is applying. Second source of learning outcome is the national and regulatory standards. For example, the program outcomes and competencies provided and issued by the agencies such as the Commission on Higher Education and the Department of Education, including also the TESDA or the Technical Education Skills and Development Authority. They set the minimum expectation for professional and skilled workers. The third sources of learning outcome is the occupational and industry expectation. Business industry should always be considered in crafting the learning outcome, especially in a higher education institution because they provide their target provide competencies demanded by relevant professions guided by employability and focused outcome. A good example of this is in a teacher education program, which you are enrolled, you are always taught of what is expected for you to do in the Department of Education as your future direction. An example is that when you craft an OBE type of authentic assessment, it should be crafted from the learning competency provided by the DepEd. In most cases, we consider DepEd as your future direction or your future employer. Another source of learning outcome is the development goals of the national government. This may be a broader national development goals and sectoral trust. An example is also um, the current administration uh, program in which to lessen the number of dropouts using the initiative of Aral program, which stands for Academic Recovery and Accessible Learning Program. Another thing that we also need to consider in the developmental goals are the sustainable development goals provided also in the international um, landscape. Now, these are the program outcomes for teacher education based on the CMOs. This should not be new to you because we have done already the introductory activity in this lesson, which is the mapping of a certain or your specific or your chosen program outcome to the course that you have already taken in this um, in the course of your specialization. They are provided in the CHED Memorandum number 74 to 80 series of 2017. These are the common program outcomes to all programs in all types of schools. So hence these are all common to 4-year degree program in which most of you, when you graduate, you are already in the PQF level 6 descriptor. That means a Philippine qualification framework. Of course, you are expected to communicate effectively in both English and in Filipino, orally or in the writing. Also, you are expected to work collaboratively well with your other peers. Also, act in recognition of professional, social, and ethical responsibility. And you are expected to preserve and promote Filipino historical and cultural heritage. These are the program outcomes common to the discipline of teacher education program. So here, regardless of your specialization, these 8 learning competence or 8 learning program outcome are expected to be demonstrated at the end of this program. And this is common to graduates of horizontal type of institution as defined in the CHED Memorandum Order 46 series of 2012. Horizontal type of horizontal type means to say that institutions are categorized into professional institution, college institution, or university institution. Now, let's talk about another source of learning outcome in the context again of teacher education program, which is the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. Again, this may not be very visible in the creation of your learning outcome, but these are always considered a set of standards that are expected for us teachers. Little history: PPST, or the Philippine Professional Standard for Teachers, are actually crafted from NCBTS, or the National Competency Based Teacher Standards. NCBTS is used in the revised basic curriculum, in which in the junior high we only have first year to fourth year, and in the implementation of K to 12, which includes the senior high years or the grade 11 and 12, there was a call to change the standard set for teachers. And as you can see in the arrow, some are just maintained, but some are also uh, changed. In this example, for NCBTS, it is subsumed into other domains, which is in the learning environment and in the community linkages and professional engagement. In the PPST, the highlight is always the content, knowledge, and pedagogy. This is because the it puts the importance of teachers knowing their content and knowing how to teach it. These are the domains of the PPST. First, we have the content, knowledge, and pedagogy, learning environment, diversity of learners, curriculum and planning, assessment and reporting, community linkages and professional engagement, and personal growth and professional development. We will not um, be very detailed about this topic because I believe during your teaching profession, we were able to understand it already. What, why is this um, implemented, or how is the creation of these standards important for us teachers? But let us just be remembered of each strand. So for domain one, here we are expected to again master the content knowledge, do research, always be adaptive with new ICT, have more strategies in promoting literacy and numeracy, and also strategize for the development of critical and creative thinking. Mother tongue, although this strand is not um, anymore applied in Matatag curriculum, but we always have the Filipino and English in teaching and learning, and the classroom communication strategies. Domain two, which is learning environment, here we are challenged to make a learner safety and security in type of environment, fair learning environment, management of classroom structure and activities, the support for learner participation, promote the promotion of the purposive learning, and of course, the management of learner behavior. For domain three, we have the diversity of learners. Here we need to consider the learners' gender needs, strength, interests, and experiences, also their linguistic, cultural, socioeconomic, and religious background, including with learners with disability, giftedness, and talents, also those with difficult circumstances, and from indigenous group. For domain four, we have strands such as the planning and management of teaching and learning process, learning outcomes aligned with learning competencies. We also have to be very relevant and responsive in different learning programs, especially the one that are provided by the Department of Education, or the TESDA or the CHED, and the professional collaboration to enrich teaching practices. The a good example of this is the Learning Action Cell that DepEd is implementing, and the teaching and learning resources, including in ICT. For the main five, which talks about the assessment and reporting, and this now hit the three courses or more than three courses you will have in assessment and learning in your specialization. So here we are expected to design, select, organize, and utilize a lot of assessment strategies that would help achieve the specific learning outcomes, monitor and evaluate our learners' progress, do feedbacking, communicate with our learners' progress, and use assessment data to enhance teaching and learning practices. For domain six, this is now the community linkages and professional development. We are expected to establish learning environment that are responsive to the community context, engage of parents in wider school community and educative process, such as, for example, the Parent Teacher Association, professional ethics, and the school policies and procedures. The last one, which is our personal growth and professional development, we are expected to have our own philosophy of teaching that we believe will improve learners' progress. We are also expected to have dignity, high dignity in teaching profession, uh, to have professional links with colleagues, such as, for example, if you became a licensed professional teacher and you became a member of a PAFTE, which is the Philippine Association for Professional Education. Also, professional reflection and learning to improve practice, which it is also being highlighted always in our class, that we become, hopefully, we become a reflective teacher. And of course, we engage ourselves with different professional development courses, such as, for example, um, enrolling for postgraduate studies. Now, in summary, when we formulate our learning outcome, we consider not just one document, but also the document provided, or the we consider the different institutional outcome, the program outcome from the Commission on Higher Education. For TEP, the Philippine Professional Standard for Teachers, and the DepEd vision and mission statements. Aligning learning outcomes with industry ensures us graduates are that are workplace ready, and instruction produces skills employers recognize as valuable. Industry relevance in making learning outcome also improves graduates' employability and sustain linkages between the academy and the wider economy. When outcomes actually reflect industry competencies, assessment can measure practical readiness rather than only theoretical recall. The next question that we need to answer in this session is, what are the characteristics of a good learning outcome? Here is it. First is it should be centered on student, or it should be a learner centered outcome. That is because the outcome will be done by the student and not by the teacher. The teacher should only facilitate the production of learning, but it should be student centered. Next, it should be aligned. It should be constructively aligned with the institutional program and course out. Next is it should be contextually relevant. It should be based with local, national, and international trends and issues. Next is it should be transparent in a sense that learners, because we created a learner centered outcome, it should be very well understood by both students and also by the faculty. This is because our, for example, our lesson plan may be adapted or may be also used collaboratively by our other colleagues. That if we are practicing a team teaching. Team teaching help us to collaboratively work with our colleagues in a sense that we have a uniform inputs to our students. Next is that learning outcomes should have cognitive range. Good outcomes span a spectrum from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. This is from recall to application to creation, following the revised Bloom's taxonomy by Anderson and Rathbone. So again, this will just serve as a review for us because we have done this already in our assessment and learning one. But this is the reason why there was a revision on the original Bloom's taxonomy because in the 1956 cognitive taxonomy, cognitive domain taxonomy, it is in noun. Hence, it 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 is actually vague that the student will not know what to do or the learner will not know what to do. That's why in the new or in the revised Bloom's taxonomy, it is in a verb form, which starts from remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and play. And these are the words that we can use. Now, we also have the McTaggy and Wiggins learning outcome, which stipulates the knowledge, basic skills, long-term understanding, and long-term transfer of learner. So here the taxonomy starts from explain, interpret, apply, have perspective, empathize it, and have self-knowledge. Another taxonomy that we can also use in the creation of our learning outcome is the Fink's taxonomy for significant learning. And this is usually used for those skilled type of programs, such as, for example, in IT and engineering. Here, you start with foundational knowledge. Next is application, integration, human dimension, caring, and learning how to learn again. And another taxonomy that can also be applied in the creation of our learning outcome is the solo taxonomy or the structure of observed learning outcomes. So as we can see here, from pre-structural to extended abstract, in which it will start with incompetence to high competence. Here, it will start with abstraction to a generalized new domain of knowledge. And these are also the verb that we can use, reflected also in this framework. Also, a good learning outcomes are or is following the SMART principle. And this is not very new to us anymore. Should be specific, measurable, attainable, result oriented, and time bounded. Such as, for example, in example A, if we say to discuss everything that you have learned from this course, that could not be called smart because to discuss everything is little impossible. But when I say, for example, in example B, to illustrate with a concrete example of at least 5 principles of learning, hence, this one is very specific, also measurable and attainable, and it asks us what is the result, and for sure, this will be very time bounded because, for example, you as PST or the pre-service teachers will be able to answer this after that specific topic is discussed. Lastly, good learning outcomes are useful and relevant to the learners. It is important that it is relevant to them since they they should be able to apply whatever they have learned in that topic. Remember that Spady defined OBE as deferred outcome and transformative only after if the student will be able to apply them after the formal education. So it does make sense that our learning outcome should be useful and relevant to our learners so that they will be able to apply it even after the completion of the curriculum or the completion of the program. And that would be it for this topic. A formative assessment will be posted in our Google Classroom. Thank you.